6, 2021. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our latest masterclass for rural electric cooperatives. Today, we are going to be talking about broadband and what the crisis communications vulnerabilities might be. And I know some of you on the call are already deep into broadband. Some of you are just dipping your toe in the water, trying to figure out if you should have broadband. Some of you are starting to work on funding. So we're going to talk to a team of people who can help us understand, since they are early adopters. We're going to look at the rural broadband and those vulnerabilities. And my name is Gerard Braud. I am your host. My background, for those of you who don't know me, is I am a former journalist who in 1994 entered into the world of being a crisis communications specialist. And I've helped organizations on 5 continents with their media training, their crisis communications plans, and many of the things we're going to talk about today. Our guest today will be Team SEMO. It's going to include CEO Sean Van Slyke, Lloyd Rice, the manager of fiber services, and Becky Ivester, the manager of subscriber engagement. And as always on our Situation Hub masterclasses, our goal is to share best practices once a month, do some higher level thinking, and always have a community of learning here at the Situation Hub, and especially at Situation Hub blog. In crisis communications, we always remind you that when you're trying to explain it to your colleagues, explain it as an umbrella or a fire extinguisher. You don't buy an umbrella because you hope it rains. You buy one in case your sunny day turns ugly. You don't buy a fire extinguisher because you hope there's a fire. You buy it in case there's an emergency. So crisis communications in our world is about always being prepared. And we always quote Winston Churchill, who said, never waste a good crisis. We look at every crisis event as a living classroom. It's a time to learn, it's a time to prepare, and it's a time to build your team. And anytime we speak about crises, it doesn't mean that we're having a news conference or putting out a news release. It simply means that we have our antenna up, and that any situation that has the ability to negatively affect your revenue, your reputation, and your brand should be treated like a crisis, treat it with a degree of seriousness so that you can either keep the crisis from happening, or if the crisis goes from smoldering to an ignited stage, you can tap it down real fast by using effective crisis communications. And our 5 steps for effective crisis communications, and we're going to use some of those today, include vulnerability assessments, having a good crisis communications plan, having pre-written statements, having well-trained spokespeople, and doing crisis communications drills at least once a year. So vulnerability assessments are one of the things we always talk about, where you look at the ordinary and the predictable things that could happen, the extraordinary things, the unspoken things, the bizarre things, and the new and changing things. And with many co-ops, that is exactly what is happening with broadband. Is it's the new and changing. So we have to find out, are there any unspoken things we shouldn't talk about? Are there any bizarre things? And there is one that we're going to talk about here that some of the older folks have problems with. So today we're going to kind of take you through a vulnerability assessment. So if you've never done a vulnerability assessment, you're kind of eavesdropping right now as we go to Team SEMO. So let's just jump straight into things. Sean, if you would, tell us a little bit about, I know you've been in utilities now since the 1990s. Tell us a little bit about this new world of broadband in rural America. When did SEMO get into it, and what was that entry like? And then we'll talk about some of the lessons learned.
So back in 2017, we had a director say, if it's not us, who's going to do it? Because it became clear, evident that nobody was going to bring broadband to rural Missouri. What we needed. We had folks with investor-owned utilities, if you will, large companies with wires in front of people's homes or buried in the dirt, but they weren't going to connect them to really fast broadband. And so our journey really started long before about 2013, but our board did approve it in 2017. And we've got some teammates on here with me we'll talk about the details, but it's been a phenomenal ride. It's been fun. It's been nerve-wracking. There's a lot of money that we have to borrow There's a lot of contractors that you use. There's a lot of things we didn't know, and there's a lot of things that we've learned. But so far, this has been a fun journey, and we really are changing people's lives.
So let's go into some of those things you didn't know. What are some of the things you didn't know that you wish you knew then that you do know now that would benefit other co-ops to know about?
I think there's a lot of things. Now, Lloyd or Becky may want to chime in here faster than I, but I think just a lot of it's just the fact that, I'll start on the funny side is just the TV side of it, because we're a triple play, and from the standpoint that we need to go out and change people's batteries and help them put their batteries in right, a little more service orientated, if you will. On the electric side, we stop at the meter. In the fiber world, we go straight into the home. And we're inside the home, and that's a little bit different for a lot of people because they're used to staying outside of the house.
So since you brought up batteries, let's go over to Becky, and Becky, unmute yourself here so you can tell us about it. So folks, one of the things that we have learned is, when you're a co-op that delivers just electricity, everybody knows how the light switch works. But as soon as you get beyond the plug and get into the gadget, then there is a learning curve, just as with anything, but especially with some of the older members. And now that the co-op is a provider of TV, problems with remote controls are an issue. So Becky, why don't you go ahead and let's get this one right out the way, because I put this one on my bizarre side of vulnerability assessments. I would have never expected that this is what's going to generate calls to you and from your members.
We receive so many calls with members trying to use the remotes. And you will find they'll sit there and they're hitting it doesn't work. The TV's broke, the internet's broke, everything's broke. When they find out they either have their batteries in backwards or the batteries are dead, and you truly have to walk them through the process of how to take those batteries out and replace those batteries. They just truly have no idea. They get it on the wrong input. They get the wrong controls in the wrong remotes in the different rooms of their house. So you have to kind of start from, which room are you at? Grab that remote. Let's make sure you're on the right input and go from step by step. And then you usually can figure out that, okay, it's your remote batteries, and kind of get them to set their TV's kind of its own little devil, but we love it. It has a beautiful picture. It gives you that triple play discount that you can use. Most people like to bundle and keep it, but it drives up a lot of calls. Simple as input, like I said, the remote issues. They sometimes just forget to turn on their set-top box. We did a new install the other day, and the installer had it all up and working. Within 15 minutes, they were inboxing us and saying, hey, my TV won't work. My TV won't work. They just didn't hit the right button on the remote to turn it on. She called me later and said, I felt horrible because on that remote, on that TV guide they left us here, it told you exactly what to do step by step. But I appreciate all that you guys do. So,
are you guys able to run your own commercials on your own network?
Yes, and I'll let Lloyd go in a little deeper on that because we do a local channel 95.
But you can't like place an ad inside of a program to like remind people how to do it, huh?
We can't yet, Jared. We are getting there. Again, like Sean says, you tend to evolve. You've got to have a certain number of television subscribers, and then sometimes that works across only certain channels. And they basically want to push you to an ad sales group. So there's a group that's going to take care of that. We do have our own local channel that we spun up. It's been wildly popular because during the COVID year that we just came out of, we ran a lot of local live sports and made that specifically put that out there, Jared, to run just local events because gym seating was limited, opportunities to go and do were so limited. And we thought, what a great opportunity for our 2,000 television subscribers to at least to be able to tune into something local. And if they're lucky enough, even their own team on a certain night. We kind of moved real fast to that point, and now we're playing a little bit of catch up with our daily content and stuff. So again, lots to learn about the TV business, most of all, which kind of stinks, doesn't make any money to speak of. And we would love to find that special place where it is not only a revenue opportunity, but not too expensive, and that doesn't cause a lot of trouble calls, right? And so far, we're not finding that space. It's just kind of part of doing this business.
And let me compliment. Well, go ahead, Becky.
We went through a real rough year with TV, and that's where you had to be really careful on your social media, because people would kind of comment and you would need to reach out to them, let them know that someone would call them, but then also inbox them and then, personally call them and take care of that to keep that from off of social media. You just had to kind of really watch that in that rough year.
Yeah. So let me compliment you guys, as we look at the issue of the little bitty things, the bizarre things that could become a crisis. Imagine if someone can't get their TV service because their batteries are messed up, it is their fault, and they take to social media and start criticizing their subscription. That, my friends, has the ability to become a crisis because it can damage your revenue, reputation, and brand. Not only have you guys been very receptive to trying to help them, but if I understand it correctly, some of you have actually gone out with batteries in your pocket and changed it for the members, correct?
Jared, the only way to define that has been recover boldly, because so much of those issues were completely out of our control. We did A+ installation. We did it fast. We're even saving you some money. And when some gentlemen couldn't watch Fox News at 2 a.m., it really became a problem. And they were really quick just to go to social media. And we've talked with you about that in the past, about how to use Facebook as a positive tool, but it can also kind of kick you in the hind end some, because, man, they're quick to go there without even letting us know or giving us a chance to fix something. So that learning curve has been very valuable to us, right? It's how open you want to be, because Sean always coaches us to be very open, very upfront. But do we want to offer up that we know about every issue that's coming, every scheduled maintenance? Because there's a fine line there, Jared, that, sometimes maybe some scheduled maintenance just needs to happen, and let it happen, right? So a lot of lessons from the electric side of the house serve us well, because we're all recovering electric side of the house people. But there is also a space in there that, because it is a competitive market, and not that any of us are a monopoly, right? But we have to always be cognizant that we are competitive. We're going to give you our A effort, but man, at some point, when enough's enough, Mr. Bro, go ahead and, if you've got to do it, we'll come pick your stuff up.
Yeah. And I class those people as volatile customers. In fact, I've got a website a video on the Broad Communications website this week on the blog talking about volatile customers. But I find that a single dissatisfied customer can just wreak havoc on you. Winston Churchill, I'll quote him a second time, where to paraphrase him, he basically said that a lie could be all the way across town before the truth gets out of bed and puts on its boots. But social media turned that outrageous customer, whether they're telling the truth or a lie or a misnomer, social media just gives them a megaphone to the world. And if any of you have not watched our episode on the social media conundrum, by all means, go to the situationhub.com/blog and watch that whole episode. Let's define something for those who don't know. All three of you mentioned triple play. So you're providing internet service, which means that you're now able to provide TV by internet service, and you're able to do voice over IP, which is telephone service. The basic landline now is coming over the internet instead of from AT&T's old copper wires. Let's go back to some of the early days of, and Lloyd, you probably are the best one to talk about this. From the time you decide that you're going to start running wires, it took you about a year before you could actually plug it in and say we have a network. Is that correct?
Great point. It took us 9 months to build our basically our internal network, get substation to substation. Basically, that ring or that very foundation took 9 months. We plugged in a couple of friendlies, we called them, a couple of employees at around that 9-month mark. And I'm going to say that they might not have even worked until about the 10 or 11-month mark. It was actually a full year to build the network out. And now as we get an opportunity to share with other co-ops, we would, if we could back up and change one big thing, it would be to say we are not hooking up anyone for a year, because it took that long to really build what has to be built, no matter the network. You may have some legs up on some fiber in the area and some other things, but it took a year, even down to new agreements and phone agreements and taxation and all the things that go with it, Jared. It was a full year around the track for lap one, yes.
Now, you guys got out there in 2017 before there was a pandemic. With the pandemic, rural broadband has become a national issue. The president is talking about providing funding for rural broadband. Do you think that co-ops who are just getting into it now will have an easier path of entry because it seems to be gaining popularity in large part because Zoom is perceived as a necessity for work?
It's definitely an easier conversation regionally. We just had some visitors up from Tom Bigby Power Association down in Mississippi. They're 2 years into their fiber project, and he and I just had that conversation yesterday, Jared, about so when you're the second, third, and in his world, 18th person in, it's just a lot different and more positive, easier path, because you've had a chance to learn from Sean and others that, hey, this big gorilla, which end do we even start attacking this thing? Is it at the finance level? Is it at the, we found out that the actual customer facing member services type billing issues became one of our most labor intensive things, Jared, and we didn't even give that 2 moments thought early on. And you really have to lean on some of your co-op brothers and sisters who've been there to dive into that.
Well, take us through that. What made that portion difficult? What was it that surprised you? What vulnerabilities existed there, and how did you adapt to it and satisfy the members?
The biggest thing is we have to use so many programs to make everything work. There's not one program that has everything. So those people that's working at the desk, the team, they're sitting there, they're answering incoming phone calls, they're waiting on people, but they're also using one program to schedule, one program to bill, one program to do TV, one to do phone. So they've got to be ready to multitask. Communications is fast, but it's rewarding. So they've just, got to be quick to move.
Mm-hmm.
7 programs in our, and if I say 7, and I'll probably short 2, it'll show some ignorance. But if you take TV, it's a different animal. It's a whole different program. If you take phone, it's a whole different animal. And if you take just internet, which is awesome, right, and the one we effectively make the most at, which is the goal, right? We do want to generate a revenue stream, but it's not all about that for cooperatives. Boy, you can get bogged down in between them. You can get mad at your vendors, and they're really doing their best for you. But that part of it, Jared, I would suggest that you have to take a team early on and really flush out all of that with your billing vendor or with your white label TV partner, whatever that's going to look like for you with your phone supplier. You have to have that because we didn't, did we, Becky? I mean, we just kind of waded into this thing and then played catch up. Gosh, we're still playing catch up on some of that.
Had to come up with a process and, just make it work. Yes, and like Lloyd said, we're still working with the vendors to kind of get all the processes to flow together.
Yeah, Lloyd, define for everybody what white label means for those who have never used that
Great
term.
question. And I'll do that, Jared. I'm the worst. I'll throw out acronyms. Yeah, back me up. But we take our TV product. So you're used to the TBS World headquarters, right? The antennas sitting outside. Well, those satellites in our world live up in Como Connect. They were one of the early cooperatives into a full-scale triple play broadband. And we take our local channels, our antennas hanging locally, we send it to them across the internet, and they pipe that along with all the TV programming that they have satellite set up. So they buy the big TV package out there, and then they sell it off to us at a certain price. We partner up amongst co-ops a little differently than just a set price, and then we sell it here. But effectively, that's what the white label process is. We're selling you Como Connect's TV product and adding our local channel platform in on top of it.
So anytime you're providing a service, whether it's electricity, telephone, TV, internet, there is the potential of two problems: a necessary rate increase, or your perception that you need to raise the rates in order to pay the bills, and the basic outage. Let's touch on outage issues first. Again, 2 months ago when we did the social media conundrum masterclass, one of the things we talked about was the fact that if it's a hurricane, tornado, windstorm, people are seeing trees fall, they tend to understand that there is an outage because there's a weather event, and they tend to be more supportive on Facebook, thanking the line crews for all of their effort. However, as we talked about it in that program, Social Media Conundrum, if it's ERCOT, if it's a power grid failure, if it's not something that they can see, touch, taste, feel, they get outrageously irate. So in your world now, you're going to have weather events that will take out both your electricity as well as your triple play. How are you prepared to deal with that? And what have you had to deal with in the past couple of years as far as a member customer's tolerance for an outage?
Most of the time in the outage so far, I mean, unless the tree falls right through their drop, that's the line that goes from the pole into their house on the fiber, unless it goes right through there and breaks it, a lot of times the fiber is laying on the ground and it's still working as long as they have electricity. If the electric's out, of course, then their internet's out. But we haven't had any kind of major outage, but when it happens, they want their services. They're calling, they're Facebooking, they're messaging, and it's just like Sean's taught us, just be open, get on social media, make a post, tell them we don't know, we're working on it, stand by, we'll kind of update you every hour that we can on what the issue is and keep moving forward. So again, it's that, recovering strong with them and just being open with them.
Lloyd, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and Sean keeps me balanced because I can swing to panic mode really fast. Because so much of that ends up out of your control. And in the electric background, right, we go put up a wire, we go cut a limb, we go do physical things. And so much of the time in this business now, it is literally is out of our control, and even out of our local IT control. It may be going on literally out in the World Wide Web. And until you get a chance to peel that back and see what caused it, we literally can sit here, Jared, and I don't want to make it sound any worse than it is. It's been awesome, but you'll sit here for 30 minutes in just a we don't know status, and that is really hard. That's where your pre-prepared statements come in, no question, and we have really gotten good at that and going in front of the mic and saying a lot of different ways. We really don't know what the issue is. And I don't say that
Yeah.
flippantly because it's, you don't want to, you're only going to get that opportunity so many times before you're the village idiot, right? But
Right.
you do, there is an honesty aspect that people appreciate about us. There is a local aspect, but eventually you better be able to carry what you're saying. So that's another whole animal, Jared, that again, it's kind of hard to prepare for that until you do some crisis conversation about it. Real blessed that that's kind of Sean's forte, is that get ready because this stuff is going to happen. Hopefully it never does, but it's more than likely going to happen. And I share that with everyone that comes and visits. You better have a plan for when it goes wrong.
Yeah. So based on, Becky, what you were describing, is it my understanding that you're saying that a weather event might take out the electricity, but it won't necessarily take out the internet, except
Right.
for the fact that in the home they don't have power to run the modem, but the juice is still essentially going through the glass fibers of the internet?
Yes, we could. We went to one yesterday. The fiber was laying on the ground. We was worried it would be an outage, but they were up in service with no issues. So, I mean, even though a tree went through the electric had to be replaced, everything restored. Even though our fiber was still on the ground, they were still with service.
That's good.
Actually, so I think Jared, more times than not, the fiber is actually still lighted because of the very nature, unless the entire substation is off. The fiber is more than likely, it's proven to be very hardy, and it can lay on the ground, it can lay underneath a limb, and the light's still flowing. And if you have a battery backup or something at the home, you still have internet services from us. We get that phone call now, Jared. They're not so concerned about the lights being out because we get it. We just had a storm, but why is my internet not working?
Yeah. So having a battery backup is not something that I have, but based on what you're telling me, and because I'm constantly trying to beat the system of everything in crisis communications, I'm going to Best Buy to buy a backup system. I do have a contract in place for a Generac whole home system, but they are so slow in putting that in. It could be another 30 days before I have that, but I'm looking forward to having that. But I guess that's also one of those things that you have to communicate to your member customers, that potential of have a backup system.
Jared, we're actually bound legally, and here is our telephone sticker, basically that we're supposed to put on every telephone in the house. That's tough to pull off, but we do put it on our modem, and it's basically talking them through if the broadband services don't work or you don't have power to your modem. And you got to be careful how you kind of even, because, how many caution 911 stickers do you want to have on your product, right? That's not great marketing. But legally, you have to understand as the subscriber that you cannot make a 911 call. You cannot make an emergency phone call if your broadband services don't work. And we're kind of taking that maybe a step further than others have chosen to, right, wrong, or indifferent. We just felt like it was a space that we had to kind of one of those, Jared, do as much as we could. We on our agreements, we've changed the agreement since, and you have to check mark that line item there. The terms and agreements that we all said, well, let's just bury them on the website somewhere. Well, that's all well and good, except for this one, because you have to make every effort to make sure Jared understands you take our VoIP product. This is a very real, a very real thing you have to understand.
Right.
So Sean's probably got to look at that a little differently than the folks out marketing and me and Becky head counting and just wanting to churn service as well. Because that's the conundrum, right? We're competitive. We're all getting a little bit out in front of it. It's like, Oh yeah, except for that 911 thing.
Right. So let's define the term churn. It was a phrase I had never heard till I started a software company. And churn and burn is when your customer signs up and then your customer doesn't renew. And it matters whether or not they've paid a year in advance or whether they're month to month or however it happens to be. And the idea is that, you know, if you're running a TV, internet, telephone service, you want to give such amazing customer service that they keep coming back to you. So what issues, and I'm not sure if this is a Becky or a Lloyd or a Sean question, what issues do you face in the new world of churn? Because in the rural electric side of the cooperative, there is no churn unless somebody goes all solar, and few people ever go that far of completely cutting their wire. So where do you stand on that as a vulnerability?
Yeah, Jared, I don't think we've churned any. I think we keep them all, right? It's because we're so good at it. But no, it has been a really low percentage, which I think most cooperatives are going to fall into. You're going to have a lower churn rate because your product really is superior. This is a world-class network that you're building. It is that good and that fast. But when they have, it's been the triple play packages or the deals, or you know what, we'll just go ahead and stream TV, so we'll dump that service. Becky, you agree, disagree?
Yes, we've lost a few to the competitors that'll offer this special deal, but we like to keep it simple. This is our prices. This is what we're going to give you. We're not going to get, change it every 6 months and raise it. If we are, we're going to get out of in front of it. We're going to send emails. We're going to start letting you know there's going to be a price increase. So we try to keep it as simple and keep the best customer support that we can possibly give.
So in the world of volatile customer, I'll confess that I have not a love-hate relationship with my internet, TV, phone provider. I have a hate-hate relationship. And I think there's a good lesson to be learned because you are offering a price that is the price all the time. Whereas I've been with this same cable company for 30 years, now 31 years, and they will offer a cheaper price to someone who uses them for 6 months than they will to me, the loyal customer who has been there. And then when I do get volatile and get on the phone like an old man and tell them I'm going to cut the cable again, because every year I cut the cable, and every year I cut a little bit service off. I go from having 100 channels that I don't watch to, the 10 that I do, and that cable company loses money on me every year because I'm paying them less every year. Whereas if they just sent me one price and stuck to it and we all paid the same price, I would not be a volatile customer. I would say that's fair. So what are you doing to offset the customer who calls and says, I'm going to go with this sale price instead of with you?
Nothing. Jared, we say we'll set up the appointment to come get your equipment. We don't even have that option. We don't give any of our sales staff or anyone that option. It is what it is. It's the same across the board, and we'll just come get your equipment. Thanks for trying it. Hope you liked it. And in doing that, again, locally, there's been some pressures where we've even put a drop into a home, and they called back just before install because they called to cancel. The deal got really good. They felt like they couldn't walk away from it. Being local, Jared, and being so honest about what it is what it is. It has really just staved off most of that. I really do believe our churn rate would be down in the really single digit percentages. It is really low, something that's really hard to even keep track of because even part of that group moves right back on our lines, right, Becky? Or
yes,
the best we can tell, it's in the single digits of percentage points.
We've had subscribers even call to make sure they can find and we'll service their area they're moving to because they don't want to leave our area. They love our service. They love the local support, that local dollar staying in the community.
Yeah. So talking about local area, for everybody on the masterclass here, you now have the ability in some cases, and SEMO does, to provide your triple play, your internet, your phone, your TV service to people who are not members of the co-op, because you're being allowed to extend your wires for broadband beyond where your wires stop for electricity. Sean, you want to take us through that, or Lloyd, take us through that? Which one of you is best prepared to talk about entering a world where you actually have customers instead of members?
So let me
or do they become members?
Well, they're members. They're still subscribers, because we don't give patronage if they're not a member. But all the profits, if there are profits, are going to flow back to the electric company. So all the capital credits, patronage will roll through the electric side. So non-member subscribers will not see a return, if you will, like a typical cooperative member. But I will tell you just real quick, Jared, I'm looking over my screen right now because we have tornado warnings, and they're actually in Becky's hometown right now. So they're setting on your town. So when we talk about real-time vulnerability, right now, I just posted to Facebook about the tornadoes that are hitting here. We have an employee across the street at a community college that's been told to take cover. I don't see a tornado right here on top of us, but it's coming our way. And we're paying attention to the weather. As soon as it's done, Lloyd's probably going to be asked to go to one of our gig cities, which is 103 people that reading the news here that maybe a tornado touched down in Allenville. So we're trying to figure out if they actually did or not. So when we talk about vulnerability assessment, this is a real-time class right now. Brittany just came in here, and the people in our office 20 miles away have taken cover because there's tornado warnings going over there, or sirens are going off. So
do we need to terminate the master class so you guys can go do your job?
No, we're done fine, because you got Missy and Amy and Shannon and Brooke here, and I don't know if they're in the fiber business or going to, but we're going to manage this. But it's just that you have to be very nimble, and that's the advantages that cooperatives have. The other day we talked on our dry run about the larger companies. We can be very nimble, but as soon as we hang this up, as soon as I hang up, that's an old term, right? As soon as we disconnect off of Zoom, we're going to go into storm mode right now. But we
just remember, in your situation hub, you have 2 tornado templates. And one of the reasons we're doing this master class is I need to start building out templates for Lloyd and Becky to use for all of your broadband issues. So that's coming to Situation Hub real soon. In the meantime, you're able to edit the statement in the situation room of Situation Hub to add both the electric and broadband. You just have to use the button that says Other. Let's ask the audience. Audience, do you have any questions? There is a chat space there if you have questions, because I know a number of the people on the call are thinking about adding broadband. As I talked to some of the people before the masterclass, many of them are in that space if they're new to it. So in the chat space on your link, if you have a question for the group, go ahead and put that in. So back to the issue of non-customers, do you find, non-members, I should say, do you find any difference in the behavior or the volatility or the customer expectations of people who are not co-op members versus those who are co-op members?
Absolutely, Jared. They are not nearly as patient, and they are real quick to call you out publicly via again, social media. It's the only other platform, and they really they're just that much more demanding, and some of that is our upfront communication, so they're not getting as much upfront communication, right? That we get our monthly newsletter out, and you know, if you've been a member of our Facebook page on the electric co-op, you've seen it. And for the most part, they're just flat out not as patient, Jared. Not to sell that short. Customer service is the same regardless. The only way we differentiate that is we charge them a $10 non-member fee is a decision we made. We don't even have to do that, but we figure the way we bankrolled this thing was we literally took that second mortgage on an 80-year-old member-owned cooperative. So you as a member owner of that should have that is your skin in the game. What are you bringing to the table, non-member? Maybe not even at times the smartest business decision. We've argued about it. Sean and I can still argue about it. Just from, again, a marketing and sales standpoint to a bigger picture view of who's building this and why. So that discussion from a non-member owner, I don't want to say the word mean or nastier. They're not necessarily, because 97, 8, 9% of what we do, we just don't ever hear from people except how marvelous it is. But when it does go wrong, Jared, you're going to make some ruts in people's yards, and you're going to knock stuff loose going around the rose bush, and, you know, who are these contractors in my yard, that type of conversation. Managing that and how quickly it can damage your reputation. Never worried too much about the revenue. We should more, but that reputation as the electric co-op, the trusted electric cooperative, is kind of something the fiber team and the electric team really wears heavy. And maybe that's why we overkill the fix on it. But I'd say, again, that's another true thing across every co-op is that brand loyalty. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and almost fight for.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you call it brand loyalty. The people who have been with you for 80 years and their grandparents were the ones who started the co-op have that brand loyalty because there's a family legacy of remembering when there was no refrigerator and no dishwasher and no washing machine. So there is that loyalty. So you now have to earn the brand loyalty with new people. I will say this, Lloyd, I don't think you can ever overdo customer service. And that's one of the things that impresses me about your team is that willingness to go above and beyond. Let's do this. I have been with you, Sean and I, for those of you who hadn't heard the story before, the 2 days where Sean and I first wrote the crisis communications plan for their co-op and did their first news releases and first vulnerability assessment, we were all sitting in the Throde Roll restaurant, and everybody's phone went off with a tornado warning, and I remember the anxiety. So I want to get you guys out of here. Why don't we do, if anybody's got a question, now's your time to ask the question. Let's just do a quick round robin. Final thoughts from you, Sean, then we'll go to Becky and Lloyd, and then we'll let you guys go do your job.
A couple of thoughts too, and there's some people, this is actually fiber. What I have found is most people have never seen fiber. And this is what fiber looks like. And you can see my ink pen here. So I can take one of these fibers and we can actually serve 32 homes. And this is purple, if you can see it. I don't know which color shows up. But so oftentimes we meet with legislators or different people who are saying, yeah, we need broadband, and they have no clue to what they're talking about and don't understand how this works. But that's a piece of glass with a coating on it. And that's how big it is. And if some of you may have horses, if you ever felt a horse mane, that's what it is. But, you know, we've been very blessed that when we started this process, we got to go to 7 or 8 cooperatives and learn from them. And I can remember the team riding in the truck and spend a lot of time on the road together. But we've had about 35 to 40 cooperatives now come and visit us in a way that we're paying it forward. But the ones that are most successful are the ones who are asking the questions, and they're asking the hard questions. And I encourage all of them on here, if they're going to get into the business, ask a lot of questions, come and see us, call us. If you're already in the business, call us, tell us what you're doing right, what's your best practice so that we can steal it from you, or admire and acquire, as Karen Moore would say down in Alabama. But we're getting ready to go to that point as soon as the COVID cloud completely lifts, or not completely, but we're getting ready to go visit some co-ops who are doing much bigger numbers than we are every month, and we're going to go try to learn from them and see what we can even do better. So we appreciate the opportunity to share our story, Jared.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you who haven't checked out Sean on YouTube, he's nearly at 3 million views. Go check out his YouTube channel. Make sure you connect with him and follow him on LinkedIn. Becky, final thoughts?
I think we owe it to our member owners. You know, they need internet. They need to be able to work from home, teledoc. They need that. They need their children to be able to come back, their grandkids to come back and start businesses. Our little area towns need that growth. We owe it to them. And it is so rewarding to talk to them and hear how we're blessing them, and the tears and the excitement when grandkids will come spend the week with them because now they have access to internet. I mean, I can't imagine not doing this for our member owners. I just can't. I mean, they're so excited, and most everyone is thankful and just blessed.
You know, and you guys were talking about you had to decide whether or not this was the right thing to do when you borrow money and do a second mortgage on an 80-year-old company. And while those were tough financial decisions, and the key part of it, one of the things I admire about you is you've also done it for the right reason. And when you do something for the right reason, the other stuff tends to fall in place. So hats off to you for that. Lloyd, final thoughts?
Yeah, Jared, the obviously we also took electric folks and made them into fiber folks because I think Sean felt, and there's two avenues, you know, you can go hire someone that's been in the industry, right? In our journey, it's been real important for us to know the system. We're fixing to switch hats here in a few minutes and probably put our electric rain gear on and go do some of that business. And again, that why being, well, we're pretty doggone proud of Team SEMO, of SEMO Electric Co-op. We are making lives better. Me and Becky get the luxury of hearing that all the time, and it really never gets old, that we're effectively part of something just like our predecessors. I mean, talk about your ability to stand on the shoulders of giants that built an electric co-op with a bunch of farmers out stringing wire and messing up and being behind on a timeline and all the stuff that went along with that. And here we are today getting an opportunity to change that dynamic for my home and my kids. We'll be dead and gone and they'll forget about us, but we changed the area for the better, Jared. And I'm like Becky, I can't imagine our cooperative not doing this right now. It has meant that much to the area. And we're getting to go out and make lives better every day. And that's a heck of a good day at work.
And God bless you all for what you're doing. As we wrap up here, I want to thank everybody from Team SEMO for sharing your expertise with us. If you have questions that you want to ask me confidentially afterwards, there is my Calendly link. If you are not yet a subscriber for Situation Hub, I just put up a bonus on the situationhub.com pricing page. We will, if you sign up in the next week, we will waive the $4.99 sign up fee and orientation fee, and we'll also reduce the price to $99 a month. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at GBro Situation Hub on Twitter. Make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. I hang out there. If you need more resources for crisis communications, you can get them on YouTube at The Broadcast, and the blog at brocommunications.com blog post just has tons of stuff. And then another place where if you have not been a part of our other master classes, go to situationhub.com blog, and you can get all you would ever want as far as resources. Next month, our topic is going to be managing the media and media interviews made easier. I will be sending out an email for you guys so that you can have access to sign up. Remember, when you sign up, you don't get a follow-up email, although I may start doing that because people are starting to ask for that. When you sign up, your webpage simply gives you the link. So that is rural broadband and looking at your vulnerabilities. We appreciate you for being a part of our masterclass. Situation Hub, once a month, we get together just to share best practices. And Sean and Becky and Lloyd, you have been most kind to give us your time to share best practices. I know you've got tornadoes to go deal with. I am going to go downstairs to my phone. If you need any of my help, I'll be on call for you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
See you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.